They promised salvation. What they delivered was terror. These are the cult leaders who twisted belief into bloodshed. In the late 1980s, the borderlands between Mexico and the United States were a crossroads of cultures, commerce, and crime. Amidst this volatile landscape, a man named Adolfo de Jesus Constanzo emerged, a figure whose charisma and cruelty would leave a mark on both sides of the border. Constanzo was born in Miami in 1962 to Cuban immigrant parents. His mother, a devout practitioner of Santeria, introduced him early to the world of folk religions, blending Catholic saints with African deities. But for young Adolfo, these rituals were more than tradition. They were a source of power. As a teenager, Constanzo apprenticed under a local sorcerer, learning the rites of Palo Mayombe, a religion rooted in Central African traditions, known for its use of ritual cauldrons, animal sacrifice, and the belief in harnessing spirits for personal gain. By his early 20s, Constanzo had moved to Mexico City, where he offered his services as a spiritual advisor to the wealthy and the criminal elite. Drug traffickers, politicians, and celebrities sought his blessings, believing his rituals could bring them protection, prosperity, and invincibility. But Constanzo's ambitions grew darker. He began to demand more from his followers, insisting that human sacrifice was the ultimate offering to the spirits. He claimed that the blood of enemies, or even strangers, would grant supernatural protection and ensure success in the drug trade. His inner circle, drawn from both the cartel underworld and Mexico's social elite, treated him as a messianic figure. They called him El Padrino, the Godfather. Under his command, the cult blended the trappings of Palo Mayombe with the violence of organized crime. In 1987, Constanzo relocated his operations to Matamoros, a city just across the Rio Grande from Brownsville, Texas. There, on a remote ranch, he established what would become known as El Padrino's killing field. The rituals performed there were gruesome. Victims, sometimes rivals, sometimes innocent strangers, were tortured and killed. Their body parts were placed in ngangas, ritual cauldrons filled with bones, blood, and animal remains, believed to channel spiritual power. The cult's violence escalated. They began abducting people at random, tourists, students, even locals unlucky enough to cross their path. The most infamous case was that of Mark Kilroy, a 21-year-old American college student who vanished during spring break in 1989. Kilroy's disappearance triggered an international search. His family pleaded for help on television. American and Mexican authorities launched a joint investigation, combing the borderlands for any sign of the missing student. Weeks passed with no answers. Then, a break. A cult member was arrested on unrelated charges and confessed to the authorities. He led police to the Matamoros ranch, where they uncovered a scene of horror. Dozens of shallow graves, ritual objects, and a shed transformed into a ceremonial chamber. The discovery shocked the world. News outlets ran headlines about satanic cults and narco-rituals. The line between myth and reality blurred as investigators pieced together the cult's activities. Forensic teams found evidence of elaborate ceremonies, candles, bones, blood-stained altars, and personal items belonging to the victims. The brutality was staggering, but so was the cult's organization. They kept records, coded messages, and lists of offerings. Authorities soon realized the cult's reach extended far beyond Matamoros. Constanzo's followers included cartel enforcers, corrupt officials, and even law enforcement officers. The investigation became a race against time to prevent further killings. As the net closed in, Constanzo went on the run with several loyal followers. They hid in Mexico City, moving from safe house to safe house, always one step ahead of the law. The manhunt became a media sensation. Police sketches of Constanzo appeared on front pages. Rumors swirled that he could make himself invisible, or that he had cursed those who pursued him. In May 1989, police finally tracked Constanzo to an apartment in Mexico City. A fierce shootout erupted. Rather than surrender, Constanzo ordered one of his followers to shoot him, choosing death over capture. With Constanzo dead, authorities dismantled the cult. Survivors told harrowing stories of brainwashing, torture, and the promise of supernatural rewards. Some followers insisted that Constanzo had true powers, that his spirit would return. The aftermath left scars on both sides of the border. Families mourned the victims, while communities struggled to understand how faith and fear had been twisted into violence. Memorials sprang up, candles, photos, and prayers for the lost. In the years since, the story of Adolfo Constanzo has become legend, a cautionary tale of how spiritual language can be corrupted into a doctrine of death. His crimes continue to fascinate and terrify, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can hide behind a promise of salvation. Today, the Matamoros ranch stands abandoned, a silent witness to the horrors that unfolded there. The echoes of Constanzo's cult linger in whispered stories, in the nightmares of survivors, and in the cautionary warnings of those who study the occult. The case forced law enforcement to confront the intersection of crime, belief, and psychological manipulation. It led to new training for investigators and a deeper understanding of how cults recruit, control, and destroy. But for the families of the victims, the pain never truly fades. Each year, they gather to remember those lost, lighting candles and sharing stories, determined that the horrors of the past will not be forgotten. The story of Adolfo Constanzo is a warning. When faith is twisted by fear and power is cloaked in ritual, the results can be deadly. His legacy is a shadow that still haunts the borderlands, a chilling example of belief turned to bloodshed. In the shadows of Brazil's vast spiritual landscape, a lesser-known but deeply disturbing figure emerged in the 1980s, Valentina de Andrade. She was the enigmatic founder of a group called Lineamento Universal Superior, or LUS, a cult that promised cosmic enlightenment but left a legacy of fear and controversy. Born in Argentina, Valentina moved to Brazil as a young woman, quickly immersing herself in the country's rich tapestry of spiritual movements. She was charismatic, articulate, and persuasive, traits that would help her attract followers from all walks of life. Her early teachings blended elements of Spiritism, New Age philosophy, and a fascination with extraterrestrial life. LUS presented itself as a metaphysical organization, promoting enlightenment through contact with cosmic intelligences. Members believed they were chosen to receive messages from higher beings, destined to guide humanity into a new era of spiritual evolution. But beneath the surface, Valentina's teachings took a sinister turn. She claimed that children were biological errors, soulless beings who should not be mourned if they died. This chilling doctrine was repeated in her writings and speeches, drawing suspicion and concern from outsiders. In the early 1990s, a series of gruesome child murders in the state of Pará shocked Brazil. At least 19 young boys were found mutilated, their bodies showing signs of surgical castration and organ removal. The crime sent waves of horror through the nation, and the public demanded answers. Investigators soon noticed an eerie connection. Several suspects arrested in connection with the murders were affiliated with LUS, and some possessed copies of Valentina's materials. The possibility that cult ideology had inspired real-world violence became a national scandal. The media descended on the case, fueling public panic and speculation. Headlines warned of satanic cults and ritual murders. Talk shows debated the dangers of fringe beliefs, while parents kept their children indoors, terrified by rumors of abductions and black magic. Valentina de Andrade was arrested and interrogated multiple times, but she denied any direct involvement in the crimes. She insisted her teachings were symbolic, not literal, and that her words had been twisted by overzealous followers. Yet prosecutors and psychologists who studied the case argued that her rhetoric had influenced followers to view children as expendable, or even obstacles to spiritual progress. The line between metaphor and incitement became dangerously blurred. As the investigation unfolded, former members of LUS came forward with disturbing testimonies. Some described secret ceremonies, manipulation, and a climate of fear. One ex-follower claimed the group believed sacrifices would bring about a higher cosmic awakening, and that the boys were viewed as offerings to the universal energy. The psychological toll on survivors and families was immense. Many struggled with trauma, guilt, and unanswered questions. Communities in Pará and beyond were left to grapple with the reality that such horrors could be committed in the name of belief. Meanwhile, the legal process dragged on. Most of the cases against Valentina and her inner circle were eventually dropped due to lack of direct evidence. She faded from the public eye, but LUS continued to operate quietly, maintaining small chapters across Latin America for years after. The case left a deep scar on Brazilian society. It forced authorities to confront the dangers of unchecked charismatic leadership and the vulnerability of those seeking meaning in uncertain times. Psychologists warned of the power of groupthink and the ease with which fear and hope could be weaponized. In the years that followed, the story of Valentina de Andrade became a cautionary tale. Documentaries, books, and academic studies dissected the LUS phenomenon, searching for answers to how ordinary people could be drawn into such darkness. Critics argue that this case underscores how esoteric language and fringe beliefs can veil deeply harmful ideologies, especially when wrapped in the allure of mysticism and led by someone with the ability to mesmerize their followers. The LUS saga remains a stark reminder of the dangers lurking at the intersection of faith, manipulation, and power. Today, the legacy of Valentina de Andrade and LUS continues to haunt Brazil. Survivors and families still seek justice and understanding, while new generations are warned of the seductive dangers of cults and charismatic leaders. The story is not just about one woman or one group, but about the human search for meaning and the darkness that can follow when that search is exploited. In the end, the case of Valentina de Andrade stands as a warning. When belief is twisted by fear and power is cloaked in ritual, the results can be devastating. The shadow of LUS lingers, a chilling example of how faith, when corrupted, can lead to tragedy. In the heart of Santiago, Chile, the echoes of political unrest have shaped generations. The story of Mauricio Hernandez Norambuena is not just about one man, but about a nation grappling with the legacy of dictatorship, revolution, and the search for justice. Born in 1959, Norambuena grew up during a time of intense social upheaval. His childhood was marked by the rise and fall of Salvador Allende, the violent 1973 coup, and the long shadow of Augusto Pinochet's military regime. Like many young Chileans, he witnessed disappearances, censorship, and the brutal suppression of dissent. As a teenager, he was drawn to leftist ideology, inspired by revolutionary movements across Latin America. The writings of Che Guevara, the Cuban Revolution, and stories of resistance against oppression became his guiding lights. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, Norambuena joined the Frente Patriótico Manuel Rodriguez, or FPMR, a clandestine guerrilla group named after a Chilean independence hero. The FPMR's mission was clear: to overthrow the Pinochet dictatorship by any means necessary. The group operated in secrecy, carrying out sabotage, bombings, and targeted assassinations. Norambuena quickly rose through the ranks, known for his discipline, intelligence, and unwavering commitment to the cause. For Norambuena and his comrades, violence was not just a tactic, it was a form of ritual, a way to reclaim power from a regime that had stolen so much. Some former members recall clandestine ceremonies before missions, invoking the memory of fallen martyrs and pledging loyalty to the revolutionary struggle. Psychologists who have studied the FPMR describe a powerful sense of group identity, an almost cult-like devotion to the cause. Members were taught to suppress fear, to see themselves as instruments of history, and to view sacrifice as a sacred duty. Survivors of the era recall living in constant fear of both the regime and the resistance. Bombings and assassinations became part of daily life. The line between freedom fighter and terrorist blurred, leaving deep scars on Chilean society. Norambuena's most infamous operations included the kidnapping of high-profile figures and the assassination of political opponents. Each act was meticulously planned, often accompanied by coded messages and symbolic gestures meant to inspire fear and loyalty. In the mid-1990s, as Chile transitioned to democracy, Norambuena and the FPMR faced a new reality. Some members laid down arms, but others, including Norambuena, refused to abandon the struggle. For them, the revolution was unfinished business. It was during this period that a young activist named Jaime Guzman, a conservative senator and advisor to the former dictatorship, was assassinated outside a university. The killing shocked the nation and deepened the wounds of the past. Rumors swirled that the FPMR had adopted occult practices, rituals meant to cleanse Chile of its fascist legacy. While most historians dismiss these claims as exaggeration, some point to the group's use of symbols, coded language, and ceremonial acts as evidence of a deeper psychological warfare. In one notorious case, the body of a police informant was found in an abandoned building, surrounded by cryptic markings and staged objects. The media seized on the story, fueling public anxiety about secret societies and hidden agendas. Confidential intelligence reports, later leaked to the press, hinted that some executions were accompanied by ideological ceremonies, meant to imbue them with revolutionary meaning beyond mere death. Whether fact or myth, these stories added to Norambuena's legend. In 1996, Norambuena was captured and sentenced to life in prison. But his story was far from over. In 1996, he orchestrated one of the most daring prison escapes in Latin American history. A helicopter swooping into the prison yard, whisking him and fellow militants to freedom. The escape made international headlines and cemented Norambuena's status as a folk hero to some, a dangerous criminal to others. He continued his activities in Brazil and other countries, always staying one step ahead of authorities. Eventually, Norambuena was recaptured and extradited. But the full scope of his actions and the true nature of his motivations remains shrouded in secrecy. Historians caution that while the ritual elements may have been exaggerated, they reflect a pattern seen throughout history. When extremist ideology fuses with spiritual or symbolic acts, it can slide into territory that echoes cult behavior. Survivors and families of victims still struggle with the trauma left behind. Some see Norambuena as a symbol of resistance, others as a cautionary tale of how violence and ideology can become inseparable. Psychologists warn that the cult of personality surrounding figures like Norambuena can be as dangerous as their actions. When martyrdom, secrecy, and violence are glorified, the cycle of extremism is perpetuated. Today, the legacy of Mauricio Hernandez Norambuena continues to haunt Chile and South America. His story is a reminder of how easily belief can be twisted by fear, and how power, cloaked in ritual and ideology, can lead to tragedy. In the end, the line between revolutionary and cult leader, between justice and fanaticism, is often blurred. The shadow of Norambuena's actions lingers, a chilling example of how ideology, when corrupted, can turn deadly. Constanzo, Valentina, Norambuena. Their followers believed in something greater. What they received was bloodshed masked as salvation. Like, subscribe and turn on notifications for more true accounts of power taken too far. And remember, when belief turns blind, it stops seeing the bodies behind it.